More and more often, I see how people begin to believe that life gradually fades with age. Energy slips away. The body feels heavier. Mornings arrive without their former spark, and the warmth between loved ones begins to dim into silence. At 64, I found myself teetering on that same edge. After one visit to a doctor who bluntly stated, "It's natural aging," I felt more alone than ever. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just age. Something didn't feel right. My name is John. I've been a physician for 30 years. Throughout my career, I've worked with people experiencing this exact transition, from active middle age into a time when the body and spirit seem to weaken. And over the years, I've come to understand that age itself isn't the issue. The problem isn't in the number, it's in how we stop caring for ourselves the way we once did. The body slowly and silently loses the ability to produce what it used to make naturally, and this is especially true when it comes to circulation. With time, our blood vessels narrow, lose elasticity, and blood doesn't flow as freely. Along with it, warmth disappears. Warmth in our hands, in our hearts, and in our relationships. We mistakenly believe that passion fades with age, but in truth, it fades with a lack of oxygen, nourishment, and attention to the body. I've seen this firsthand with hundreds of patients. Men complained of exhaustion and apathy, women of lost sensitivity, insomnia, and anxiety. They all shared one thing: poor circulation and a deficiency of essential nutrients. But when we restore that balance in time, everything changes. I wanted not just to treat, but to share this understanding. I developed a simple, clear approach that helps people reclaim their vitality without complicated regimens or expensive medications. Just 4 vitamins. Yes, it sounds almost too simple, but they work. Every day, they lay a new foundation, not for youth, but for strong, warm, vibrant living. And there I was, sitting across from another patient. His name was Michael. He looked down and said, "I don't feel like myself anymore." I recognized that look. He was standing where I once stood. But everything starts with something. And the first thing I said to him was, "You're not lost. You've just forgotten how to care for yourself. And I'm here to help you remember." When Michael returned for a follow-up appointment 2 weeks later, he already looked different. Not younger, but somehow warmer. His face had more life in it, and his voice carried a new confidence. "Doctor," he said, "I can feel my blood moving through my body again." It was only the first step, but an important one. We had started with vitamin K2, and not by chance. K2 is a quiet hero of vascular health. It acts like a wise supervisor, ensuring that calcium ends up where it's needed, in the bones, not in the arteries. When calcium builds up in blood vessels, they become stiff, like old rubber hoses left out in the sun. Blood slows down, tissues receive less nourishment, and good circulation is essential for everything. Memory, mood, even the warmth of your hands, feet, and embraces. Michael began taking 200 micrograms of K2 in MK7 form every morning with breakfast. Within a few days, he noticed that his hands weren't as cold, and the sluggish feeling in the mornings was gone. His wife mentioned that he started reaching out to touch her more, spontaneously, not out of habit, but with real affection. These little things are the most important, because when the body comes back to life, the feelings follow. But K2 is only one half of the duo. The other component I always recommend is vitamin D3. People often underestimate it, thinking it only supports bone health, but in reality, it acts more like a hormone. It regulates the immune system, affects mood, energy levels, even sleep and sexual desire. In older adults, D3 levels are often critically low, especially in winter months when sunlight is scarce. Michael began taking 4,000 IU of vitamin D3 with meals rich in healthy fats, like eggs or a slice of avocado. A week later, he told me, "I've started waking up before the alarm." It was the first time in years. His eyes looked clearer, he joked more, took interest in books he had long abandoned. At home, he and his wife began cooking together again. Something that once felt like a chore now became a moment of connection. K2 and D3 work in tandem. One directs calcium, the other brings the body back to life. This isn't about eternal youth, no. It's about the return of desire, not only for your partner, but for life itself. That's where real recovery begins, with believing that change is still possible. A month after starting K2 and D3, Michael was hardly recognizable as the man who had first walked into my office. He went out for walks more often, got out of bed with greater ease, and had developed a distinct inner warmth. But we both knew there were still 2 more steps ahead. The next was vitamin B3, better known as niacin. It's not just a vitamin, it's the engine of circulation. I remember the first time I explained niacin to Michael. He listened with surprise, as if he couldn't quite believe something so ordinary could have such an impact. But that's exactly what it does. It helps blood vessels expand and allows blood to flow easily, even to the furthest corners of the body. The secret lies in its ability to increase nitric oxide, the very same compound that many medications for improving circulation and erectile function are based on. But unlike those drugs, niacin works gently, supporting the body's own processes. I advised Michael to start with 500 milligrams of flush niacin taken with food. I warned him about the warm sensation and slight redness he might feel. It's not an allergic reaction, but a sign that the blood vessels are opening up. A few days later, he returned with a smile. It's a strange feeling, but a good one. I could feel my body again, as if it really belonged to me. He became more active, started doing light morning stretches, laughed more often. His wife noticed, too. He was becoming not just physically warmer, but emotionally more attentive and gentle. As his body came back to life, so did his capacity for affection. The next step was vitamin E, and I always emphasize, not the synthetic kind, from drugstore shelves, but a natural blend of mixed tocopherols. That's what delivers real benefits to the blood vessels, protecting their inner linings from wear and inflammation. As we age, those vessels lose their flexibility and become fragile, which affects more than just the heart. It touches how present we feel in our own bodies. Michael began taking 400 IU with lunch, and within a couple of weeks he told me, "My fingers feel more alive. There's a new lightness in my body." His wife added, "He wants to hug again, not out of habit, but with warmth." These 2 vitamins seemed to complete the circle. Niacin opened the pathways, and vitamin E helped keep them clear. Most importantly, together they restored not just physical vitality, but the quiet emotional sensitivity we so often lose with age. One evening, Michael stayed in my office longer than usual. He wasn't in a rush to leave. He sat quietly, looking out the window, then suddenly said, "Doctor, I feel like a man again. Not younger, not like I used to be, but alive." I've heard these words from many patients, but each time they strike me deeply. Because behind them is not just better health, it's a restored connection with oneself. Michael had come a long way, from indifference and fatigue to warmth, movement, and a renewed desire to live. But the real secret wasn't in the vitamins themselves. It was in the fact that he started. He took the first step and kept going. That's what I always try to explain to people. Don't wait for magic. Start small, be consistent. Don't try to change everything in a day. Give yourself time. We began with K2, and it was the right decision. It cleared his arteries, removed excess calcium, and opened the way for blood to flow. A few days later came D3. It boosted his energy, balanced his hormones, and brought joy back to his mornings. Then niacin, reviving the blood vessels, giving his body a new pulse. And finally, vitamin E, solidifying the progress, protecting what had been rebuilt. It's simple, but only if you follow through, not in theory, but in practice. I often remind my patients, these vitamins aren't magic, and they're not miracle cures. They're building materials. And like any material, they only work when used. But once you start, in just a week, you might notice. Your hands feel warmer, your thoughts clearer. You want to take a walk, cook something delicious, look your loved one in the eyes. These are the signs that you're returning to yourself. Now, Michael and his wife often come to my office together, sometimes just to talk, sometimes to share how they're doing. Recently, she said, "We're holding hands again, quietly, but with warmth." For me, that's the greatest reward. Because health isn't only about blood pressure and lab results. It's touch. It's a glance. It's inner gentleness. It's the desire to be close. This kind of change is possible for anyone. Age isn't the enemy. It's simply a reminder to be more attentive to yourself. Your body isn't failing. It's asking for help. And now you know how to give it. Let everything begin with one step, one vitamin, one moment of care, one day of attention to yourself, then another. And before you know it, you're not just living. You're feeling life. And that means everything is just beginning.